So my name is Nancy Fulton, and as anybody who's tuned into this call knows, I currently run events for more than 25,000 entertainment industry pros here in Los Angeles, writers, screenwriters, producers, performers. And I am currently speaking today with Joanna Sayak from WriteStraight.com, who's going to be talking about the platform that filmmakers can use to sell their rights to their film internationally. They currently sell into more than 125 countries, if I'm not mistaken, and which represents more than 175 territories. And so having said that, Joanna, do you want to take a few minutes to talk a little about your background and the problem that WriteStraight solves for independent producers?
Sure, completely. So a bit about me. I've been working in entertainment for a while now. I started off over at Disney and then worked for a long time at the Independent Film and Television Alliance. And there with IFTA, essentially we ran the AFM every year. So I know kind of firsthand what it takes to get up and raring for a market, a lot of energy, a lot of just, busy days essentially. More recently, I went to go get my MBA over at HEC Paris, which is in France. Recently returned and started working for WriteStraight, and now I lead marketing efforts here at WriteStraight with an awesome team. And with WriteStraight itself, I think the problem that we initially saw was within the markets, essentially. So there's an existing market cycle, which is the American film market with Cannes, with MIP, all these big markets. You basically have 3 to 7 days to do your business, right? So it's 3 to 7 days of really intense, personalized, driven conversations to try to get your product sold, essentially. And then after those markets end, essentially, you have about a number of weeks, a number of months before those conversations kind of pick up at the same level of intensity again. So you have these dearths in between the market where you're just waiting to see what happens next. So if you are a producer who has content, that's a long time to wait. You don't want to be waiting a year to see what happens next with your content. And more, we're kind of seeing a shift in communication style. So it's no longer things should be happening at MIP, things should be happening at Cannes, what happens next. We're seeing more of a conversation happening outside of the markets themselves. And WriteStraight has actually been able to be the host to a lot of these conversations happening outside the market cycle as a way to basically just keep the conversation going. In general, there's been a communication shift and a trend in general of being able to be, accessible, right? At all hours of the day, and in terms of just having the ability to connect online. For some reason, the film industry was not necessarily the first to adapt with this, and it should not necessarily be exempt from the same kind of levels of communication. So I think initially the problem that WriteStraight viewed was this lapse, essentially, in how quickly conversations could happen. So film and TV buyers continue to look for different ways to distribute their films, and that trend and that shift is essentially what moved people towards, wanting to have more conversations and not waiting so long in between those conversations. So when you're in the market itself, let's look kind of on the buyer side of what happens, right? So if you're a producer and you go to the market, let's say your title's completed, you're gonna look for a buyer. And that can be, you can basically approach it two different ways. You can look for a sales agent who will help get you distribution and help your content find a life after the market. Or you can do more of a self-distribution route, and with the emergence of the recent streaming platforms, you can definitely find a lot of different ways to kind of run that route. But if you're at the market and you're trying to just meet with a buyer or a sales agent, you recognize that they have an amazing amount of meetings to attend, very, very limited time. And in general, they're not going to have a lot of just, meeting chunks in their day to give you. So if you're a sales agent, you do want to see any title that applies to you. You will want to see any title that would be good for your slate. But the reality is that they're just not going to have time in their day during the markets to give, a producer the time that content deserves. And so you're kind of getting shut out from those conversations. At the same time, if you are a sales agent, your problem is that you have to sell essentially hundreds of titles to hundreds of buyers, again, in that very short market window. So you're pressed on time. It's not an easy job. It's certainly difficult. And if you're a producer, it's very difficult to enter that conversation, right? So at the market, sales agents aren't going to give producers the time that they deserve because they already have a meeting schedule packed with, meetings with their buyers. That's their priority at the markets. Mm-hmm. The buyers themselves in general are attending less screenings. So people that have a title or two that want to get distribution are finding themselves kind of shut out from the market cycle. And I think what Rights Trade was seeing with this was that just that lapse in time and the lapse in the ability for conversation was an opportunity. And so we stepped into that to essentially bridge the gap. So who Rights Trade is, we are the leading and the largest online marketplace for film, television, and digital media rights. We started back in 2014 and soon after won the MIP-TV online top video and TV startup. And now we've grown to actually outpace the attendance of even the largest physical market. So we're now at 20,000 within our community. And Cannes, as of last year, was at about 12,000. So we're very happy to have grown at such a rate and to be host to buyers and sellers of all different shapes and sizes that want to sell their content online and find each other. So Rights Trade itself is both a sales and a screening platform. You list your content and buyers can find you. If you're a buyer, you come to us to find content. And a screening platform in that if you're looking for a secure place to send out your screeners, we have that all within our app as well, all within our platform as well. So again, for buyers and sellers to have a really trusted way to find each other, to start their deals, to do negotiations, and do that all within a safe, secure platform. We've now had over 200,000 secure screenings and continue to just basically foster community that allows buyers and sellers to feel comfortable, outside the market cycle itself. We're seeing more and more folks use deals in a non-traditional way, and Rights Trade has been host to many of these kind of conversations. We have over 5,000 vetted buyers, so Rights Trade does have an entire vetting process for the buyers that enter our platform. We don't allow just anyone on. We know how frustrating it can be as a seller to make somewhat of a deal with someone and they run away in the night. So we do have a vetting process for any buyer that comes under Rights Trade, so our entire community, again, has that level of security with anyone they're conversing with on the platform. So again, I think the problem that Rights Trade initially saw within the market, within the industry itself, was there's an amazing amount of content sitting on the shelf, an amazing amount of buyers that have emerged, and there, for some reason, these two things weren't connecting, right? Mm-hmm. So within our own research within Film Trek and Rights Trade, we found that over 73% of film and television rights were unsold in their first 5 years. That's a huge amount. That's much more over the 50%, right? So huge amount of the majority there. And then within the last 5 years alone, there's been over 5,000 TV and VOD buyers that have entered the market. And the problem is really that just due to kind of the lapses in content licensing and those little divots that we're seeing in terms of the problem, they're not able to find each other and see each other. And so our big goal is, how do we get these people connected, and how do we make sure that buyers can see content? How do we make sure that content owners can find the buyers that are looking for their content? And so transparency was really our key goal and our key kind of driving force with this platform. So Rights Trade itself, these are kind of our 4 pillars of what makes up the business as a streamlining way to basically do your sales and to screen your content. The first of which, I mentioned before, is sharing. We are host to both buyers and sellers. The idea being that sellers can put their content within Rights Trade's platform, list all their details, have a way of putting up their videos or their screeners and being able to send those to buyers. At the same time, buyers can quickly view an entire catalog of all different kinds of content, of all different, not only genre types, but also feature films, television serials, things that come basically from the digital route, right? The YouTube route as well. So we have all different levels of how things are produced as well. And essentially to matchmake in terms of the buyers that are looking for, their key content, and the sellers that are trying to find life for their content after it's finished. The next one being basically a secure place to screen your content. Rights Trade has made it a key mission to make sure that security is key for us. So we do offer not only branding for sellers, essentially, so when they send an invite, it's fully branded with your company's information and branding and logo, but also watermarks that are personalized. So whoever's viewing your content, there's their name viewing it each time. It's not just a generalized watermark. We have everything down to IP targeting. So if you want to make sure that only this one person sees it at only this one day, only this time, we have it all the way down to those levels of granularity in terms of screening security. And then I think one big thing that also sets us apart is the analytics capability. We have a platform that instantly allows you to see the minute that someone starts watching your content, the minute they stop watching your content, and how long they watch your content for. So you can do really targeted kind of follow-up based on, oh, I see they finished watching my film. Oh, they've only watched 5 minutes of my film. Maybe I'll follow up in a week when they finish it, that kind of thing, which again, helps to streamline your process for your sales. The big thing here, sales essentially, that you can sell anytime, anywhere. Again, our goal is that you don't have to just wait months in between the next market. The idea being that if you're in the south of France, great. If your buyer's in the south of, southern tip of Argentina, great. As long as you guys both have internet, you guys still do a deal. And then to be able to do all your negotiations within the rights trade platform itself, the sign idea, right? So we have something called the Deal Wizard that hopefully saves you hours of legal time and preparation time. We've made best practices templates based on all kind of deals that have happened in the past few years, with kind of the greatest hits of templates that are most often used. So you can go in without a legal background and say, oh, no, I can just put in my numbers that'll work here, and make it a really streamlined process for your actual deal making. So that final process of getting the signatures and getting yourself finally, signed in a way is much less of a headache, which hopefully will just save you time and save you the effort. I'd also, I think of us very much as basically a lead generation kind of powerhouse as well. We have lead generation from all different sides. There's three main tasks though. So we have the buyer side, in which buyers can come to the platform and find the content they want, right? So that's kind of inbound. So if you're a content owner, buyers can find your title or titles and inquire directly there. So last year alone, we saw over 20,000 content inquiries. And then similarly on the seller side, we have kind of the outbound push as well, right? So if you're a content owner, you can definitely do your own outreach and say, oh, I know these 10 buyers are going to be really perfect for me. I'm going to do some personalization of my messaging. I'm going to send them targeted screeners and data about my titles, and make sure I put this right in front of those people that need to see it. And then on the rights trade side itself, we also have kind of a two-pronged way that folks can find content. So on rights trade, we have a huge amount of data that gets collected when there's buyer activity on the platform. So when someone is searching for a certain amount of genres or whatever it might be, we can do really kind of recommended content for them and say, oh, we saw that you've been having good luck with kind of romances. Here's other romances that apply to you. Also, if there are buyers that need kind of more a personalized approach, we have something called the buyer concierge. So if you're looking for something very niche, very personalized, fly fishing films from, 1990s, we can step in and help with more kind of deep niche personalization and searching for buyers in that case.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I think one of our key goals has been security overall for all of our screenings. So I think the reason that we've had 200,000 screenings at this point is because folks feel comfortable with all all that the platform truly provides. So it's advanced security features, including things like the personalized watermark, which basically refreshes itself depending on whoever's watching it. So if you, Nancy, were watching it, it would say being viewed by Nancy Fulton, if I was my name instead. You can do completely personalized screener authorization, so you can limit not only the views, but the devices, the IP targeting, all these to basically ensure that your title is only out of your hands for as little time as possible. Again, it's cloud-based, so you can really view it anytime, anywhere, as long as your internet connection is good. We do make it branding available to you, so you can make it look like your content is living within your company's environment. So it's important for you to personalize and add your logo and that kind of thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then also extensive analytics. I think that's one of the biggest things that our community enjoys, is that the fact that they can really see, oh, my title was viewed 30 times yesterday, or I still need to follow up with these people, they haven't exactly viewed it yet, and being able to do really amazing amount of targeted follow-up based on our analytics platform within the platform. And then just unlimited streaming and storage as well.
Very cool.
So we are very proud to host the largest buying community, again, on RightsTrade itself. And again, our buyers come from all walks of life. They are folks that are acquiring for all rights, from airlines to international, theatrical, whatever it might be. But we have buyers that range from kind of the big titles to ones that you may not have even heard of yet. So I think one of the biggest things that our community enjoys about the buyer ability on there is that you can find those big names and interact directly with them, or it's a great opportunity to find buyers that you may not have heard of yet. You know, a documentary buyer that you didn't know was looking for your type of documentary and that you just had never crossed your path before. It's a great way for discovery in that case. We do find a lot of folks come in with the intention of selling to a big fish and then have better luck with folks that they may not have even heard of yet that are hungry for their kind of content. So again, matchmaking has been one of our key goals. And then on to your kind of point here about international, right? So our buyer community is majority international. We are more than 2/3 international with kind of the biggest group here coming out of Europe. And this is just on the buying side, but also within our seller side. Our seller sides are 46% from out of the US as well. So we do have a very, very global group. I think global coverage is essentially a key to our growth and support as well. When there's opportunity for conversations to be had about in all levels of different kind of content and things that you might not be able to connect with at a traditional market, I think RightsTrade has been awesome about evening that playing field, like we were discussing before this conversation, Nancy, of just being an egalitarian place for your content to rise to the top. It's truly about the discovery is equal for everyone on the platform, right? So you truly do get to see which content has a bit more, I guess, buying power in this case, to monetize your content. On the selling side, we do have folks that range from the bigger folks, the Miramaxes, the Legendaries, to sales agents such as Hanway and Sierra Affinity, down to single title producers. It's truly all shapes and sizes in terms of content producers and the amount of titles they're selling. Again, I would say that I would credit our diversity as one of our strengths in that sense. And we are non-exclusive. So we encourage all of our community members to use whatever paths have worked best for them or they think might work best for them. You can use a sales agent, you can do a more personalized approach, RightsTrade, and you can go to the markets. We are non-exclusive and we encourage filmmakers to explore all levels of creativity in terms of finding life for their films. Now I'd love to take you guys on a tour of RightsTrade. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great. Thanks.
So I'm going to jump out of here real quick. Let's go to the kind of the buyer experience first. So if I was a buyer coming to RightsTrade and, you know, let's say I'm in the mood for something, I need to buy SVOD content. I'm going to go to RightSearch, which is our platform search tool that specifically searches through all of the content that RightsTrade has to offer. So it's grouped by all different kind of vectors here, but you can search down to the rights group. Let's say, again, I'm looking for SVOD. You can do the region for which you want to acquire. In this case, we'll say we're looking for Australia and New Zealand. On the product types, here's where you'll see the kind of the levels of all different kind of lengths and packaging. So you can look for TV episodes or feature films. I'm going to say in this case, we're looking for a feature. And then our genres, the level of granularity gets huge here. I was talking to Nancy right before the call just about the amazing amount of content genres we have to offer. Let's say in this case, we'll just say I'm looking for an action adventure, but it is great to see the level of diversity that all of our content producers have on offer on RightsTrade. You can look for companies if you like, you can look for countries if you like, countries of origin for the film. Let's say this buyer is looking for just something recent, he's gonna look, he or she's gonna look for last year. And then what you'll do is you'll run an availability check, and this is when it will search through all of our available rights to see the kind of content that matches up for you. And then essentially you'll go and search here, and we'll scroll up to the top to see what matched our last year search for action adventure. A buyer at this point can say, okay, great, I'm gonna I like the look of this one, this one, this one, and they can go straight to making an inquiry on these titles, which can send a personalized message all to these different content owners. Or if they're not familiar with the title yet, they can say, you know what, I want to see a few more details. And this is where the seller will be able to put in as much detail or as little detail as they would like, but you get to put your, your kind of summary of the film, everything about your genre, your director, your cast. This is also where you get to add lovely key art. If you have your screener, you can attach it here so someone can request the screener or just make an inquiry. Again, that's up to the content owner in terms of how much they want to make available or not. That's fully customizable. So a buyer could just say at this point, you know what, I just want to find out about this film and make an inquiry. They could request a screener, or they could just add it to a shopping list as well and say, I'm going to look for this later. I'm going to add it to my shopping list. And that essentially just goes on a wish list. Or you can say, I'm going to make an inquiry for these 3 titles. And what will happen is that you'll see it'll basically be prepped for all the different kind of sellers themselves, and they'll be grouped that way. So you can see, oh, good, Odin's Eyes here, Arclight's here, these 2 titles are from them. And you can personalize a note for each of the seller. And we do recommend personalization, hi, I saw your title, etc. And then you, as the seller, will receive a message in your inbox. Let's jump over to see what you'd receive. I'm gonna log in here as my seller account. You'll instantly get something in your inbox called an inquiry, which says, oh my gosh, great, someone reached out about my title. In this case, it was a price inquiry submitted by another buyer, and they said, are the rights still available? You can pop in and immediately reply with a message here saying, yes, great, let's talk more. Or you can go straight to making an offer, which again, this is the deal wizard. This makes it super easy to do negotiations online, all within RightsTrade. Again, we hopefully save you a lot of hours of legal work by, you don't need to have a law degree to be able to take a look at this and personalize what you want to kind of set as your initial price. So you can select whether this is going to be a minimum guarantee or a flat deal. Again, if you want to price your entire deal at the deal level, the title level, or the detail level, the rights level. So let's say we're going to do it at the deal level. In this case, we're just looking at one rights region. You can set a price to be whatever you like. We'll say 10K. And then you can set things such as your payment terms, your languages, if there's any kind of different languages you might have, your holdbacks. Let's say you sold something and you have a holdback of 90 days because you sold it to someone else for a bit. You'd add that kind of stuff here. Any exclusions, any delivery terms. This is all really easy to personalize and doesn't mean you're wrestling around in papers for too long. And you can send this in basically right away to your buyer with a message if you like, saying, whatever you like, maybe a few more details about the deal itself, open to negotiations, and that'll go straight to your buyer so your negotiations can begin. Or if you don't want to jump straight to the offer stage, you can send them back a screener. So if you do that, your buyer will receive a beautiful screener from you, essentially. Let's take a look here. You'll see there's a watermark here. Keep on watching that. So the watermark is personalized by the seller themselves. You can choose how big to make this, the placement of this, where to put that. And then the buyer can basically view it in the small screen here, view it in full screen, but can interact with your screener that way and then respond to you saying, I like the look of it. Or if you want to do some more outreach, basically, you can take a look at your analytics. So over on the seller side, let's go take a look at what that looks like. I'm going to go to manage my screeners. Great. So when you're going to go send a screener, you'll come here. You'll select your project. You're going to say, I'm going to send my Dreamer title. I'm going to send not only the promo, your trailer, but also the feature. You'll set a start date and an end date. And then here's where you can add every level of security you think is appropriate. So if you want to limit the views to only 3 views, if you want to limit the devices to just 1 or 2 devices, you can. And if you even want to limit the IP targeting to make sure it's only that person watching it to just their specific IP address, you can do that as well. And then you'll simply add all that level of security here. This makes it very, very simple to essentially add the security even before the screener goes off. Then if you have someone in mind, you can send that person directly. You can add them as an invitee. Or if you have a quick email list that you want to make sure you do some outreach for, you can say, I'm going to do this for my France buyers. I already did. So I already prepped this list. I'm going to put them in here and they'll instantly get added for you. Super easy. If you have people on your team you think should be copied, you can add someone on your team. And then you can personalize the message here, which we always recommend doing when you're reaching out to buyers and vice versa, just to make sure this is coming from you know, a human who cares, and you've done a little bit of your research, and this is where you get to show off that you know a bit about them. So this is where you personalize your message saying, I see that you're really interested in, you know, action films, and mine's great because I have XYZ. This is your chance to do that. And we typically recommend these messages staying about 2 sentences, short and sweet. But that's kind of where we see the best response rate, something that shows you, you know, you're interested in them, why they should be interested in you, and keep it short, our recommendations.
Very cool.
Then you send off that screener invite to folks, they'll get the screener. And then as soon as you send off the screener, you can go to the analytics here and see the moment someone starts watching your film. So we do tracking based on those kind of buyer activity things to allow you to see down to the minute in terms of how long someone's watched your film for. So this is for our seller company. This is the test ones who our video on here is only about 5 minutes long. But you'll see, you know, the average time viewed is about a minute. But you can literally pop in here, and some years will probably look more like someone's watched 53 minutes of your film, someone's watched all 96 minutes of your film, whatever it might be. This will be down to the user, down to the date, how you invited them or how you requested them, if they requested you, vice versa, and the number of minutes watched.
Very cool.
Which is great. It makes it very easy to kind of take a look and have a quick view of basically what's been happening with your title. Also, if you're the kind of person that wants to have just data down so you can play around with it, you can download any of our reports. So we have things such as the individual views analytics, the views by authorization, the unwatched authorizations, all these things, and they'll download as a really easy Excel report for you. So then you can do all of your sorting and say, I don't want to see these people, I just want to look at these ones. Any of your dates watched, and do some, you know, filtering here and whatever you might want to do on Excel or with the data itself to manipulate it to be useful for you.
So if you were working with a sales agent, if you decided that instead of selling your project directly, you decided you did want to work with a sales agent, there are sales agents which use RightStraight as a platform. Yep. And this would allow you to find out how many times they've pitched your project, how many people have watched screeners, who they pitched the project to, if they felt like generating this report for you.
Completely. We, again, kind of as you hit on earlier, transparency has been a big deal for us. And we want to make sure that everyone that uses the platform feels that as well. And so we try to make sure that instead of just, there are other kind of screening services out there where you send a link and you never kind of have any idea of when someone watched it or if they watched it or if you should reach out again. With our very targeted follow-up saying, hey, I saw that you watched the film last week. What'd you think? You want to have a discussion? And it allows you to have just more informed conversations in that case.
Very cool.
When someone gets your screener, you can take a look at the kind of email that they'll receive. So you can add all of your branding here. So this will be a nice big photo of your company logo or you know, anything you want to put there in terms of an image. It shows up with your key art from the title itself, the title, a couple of quick details, and then someone can watch directly from here. This is the feature and the promo, and then the screeners on a separate page, but makes it very easy for someone to jump over there and start watching your content essentially.
Very cool.
And then let me see, I think I'm going to jump to our newest thing that we're proud to be debuting soon, which is all of our market insight stuff. One of our big goals from last year that we're carrying over to 2018 now is to basically use the data analytics capabilities that RightStraight has and make it basically more of a resource to the industry at large, right? So because we are a big community and because we, as a platform, have access to know kind of where things are trending, we wanted to make it available to buyers and sellers so they can kind of start to learn about the content out there and maybe personalize their content around that. So a big project that we've been doing is one based around genre data to see which genres have been trending in terms of buyer demand. This is a quick snapshot of just the last year. alone in terms of what was pulling the most demand, which I think is super interesting. So drama, thriller, action were at the top of this, but pretty kind of equal in terms of what's on there in terms of supply and rights trade right now and demand. But you can definitely see opportunities if you're a producer. And I think it's interesting for basically anyone. If you're a producer, if you're a sales agent, if you're a buyer, kind of where these little lapses are and where there's opportunity to kind of fill the gap again.
Mm-hmm.
We'll also be debuting very, very soon market insights kind of on a geographic level. This will be something that's available to the rights trade community. And this allows you to start searching globally, not only on the genre level, but also by the region of the country level for the level of demand for your genre. And again, this will be something that allows you to dial in to different countries, different genres, different region levels, and allows you to take a really kind of dedicated look at what's been trending in terms of genres and how to adapt to your content as such. So it'll not only be relative genre demand, but also comparative genre demand. So if you want to dial into Asia as a region, for example, and see, oh, overall in Asia, action is taking almost 20%, drama is taking almost 18-ish% of the overall demand for genres in that area, and take a look comparatively in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So again, this is something that will be fully debuted relatively soon here within the year. The full version of it will be available to everyone in the rights trade community. A small, basically a free version of it will be available to non-rights trade members, but everyone in the rights trade community will have full access to that very soon. We're very excited for this project.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Is there a notion of conceivably, and maybe not in 2018, but in 2019, adding information about who's starring in the films and stuff like that? The only reason I ask is that a lot of people, there are analytics companies that are routinely trying to figure out or trying to tell people, look, if you want to hire this particular actor, he's bankable in this particular location. This actor is bankable in this particular location. There are platforms where you can pay money to try to get that intelligence, but you guys are in a position to provide that information as well, right? In other words, if somebody puts Harrelson in a particular project, and all the films with Harrelson that are dramas tend to do well in these countries. I know if I produce a drama with Harrelson, it will do well in those countries.
Right. Yeah, I think it's definitely an amazing question. Currently, it's not part of the plans for 2018, but we always take in feedback how we adapt these things going forward. Almost all of rights trade was built that way, actually, in terms of how to push the platform in ways that are more useful for the buyers and sellers on the platform. So I would say that definitely don't count it out in terms of what happens in the future with these analytics, because ideally this continues to grow in terms of what is on offer in terms of the dial downs, right? We're thinking of just the genre and kind of the geographical level, but you're right in terms of the data capability that rights trade has to offer. So
well, I mean, so you're going ahead and you're collecting the data anyway, and the other thing is that the other thing you guys do routinely is you'll put out something and then you'll refine it and refine it and refine it. So the full market insights, it seems like talent would be a kind of a normal progression, next year or the year after, and also because it may be a key decision-making criteria for buyers as well.
Definitely. I think, as you pointed out earlier, there are people that are currently doing that in the space that have been dedicating their kind of entire scope to that. I think you're right that we could pull into it. I think that in terms of being, again, kind of our overview for the majority of members, what they find the most useful, John is pulling first. Not all producers have access to all levels of talent they can hire, so this was the one.
That's true. No, I think you do. I think it's what you've done is I think what you've done is amazing, and I think genre is very important. And most of these guys aren't making. Most of the filmmakers that are working, or at least the ones that I'm working with, are working at a level where what's going to sell their project is the genre, is the location, and is the talent. It's not going to be talent driven because they can't usually afford name talent. But it just seemed, I was just wondering if you guys had planned to do it. Frankly, I'll tell you why. What's the name of that big ticket site? The guy that the people that monitor ticket sales worldwide. I can't remember what it's called, but it'll come to me in a minute. But the point is that these guys, they're basically tracking ticket sales for theater worldwide, and they used to have this app, all of $9, and you could actually get this app, and you could actually say, okay, you could search for the name of a person. It would actually, like Harrelson or Russell Crowe or whatever, and it would actually tell you in each country what each film that they've been involved in had made. So it was really good if you wanted to find out why David Hasselhoff really was, for some perverse reason, very popular in Germany.
He's a good guy, but they love him even more than we would ever love him, right?
Yeah, exactly. Who knew that it was going to be this? But my point is that they took away that particular app, and now in order to get that kind of data, it's costing. You have to basically join up with this whole service and get a whole bunch of other stuff that you don't really care about. So for independent filmmakers, it's a huge barrier to entry. Whereas if you're already doing such a huge amount to support independent filmmakers and independent film distribution, and you're providing insights for full marketing, and since these people are already coming in to report about their film in terms of genre and running length, asking them who are the top 5 films who are the top 5 cast members seems like a kind of an easy thing to add. Not that you should do it, I'm just saying that's why I thought of it.
Completely. I think it's an excellent point, and I thank you so much for bringing it up. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah. Kind of last thing I wanted to touch upon here was the fact that we have something called the producer plan. I'm not sure if this is something you're familiar with, Nancy, but this was debuted last year. This is a way to essentially get up and running with rights trade as quick as possible for some of our bigger clients, some of the ones that have a few hundred titles and a few, sometimes 1,000 titles or so. The onboarding process can take a little bit longer, but if you do have a single title or two, the producer plan can get you up and running on rights trade in as little as 1 to 2 business days.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to make sure that producers know about. So if they're looking for ways to immediately start monetizing their film, they can sign up with rights trade pretty quickly here. So I'd love to just kind of take a look at what that is for you guys in terms of if you're interested, if you
Definitely.
questions here. But essentially the producer plan gets you access to everything I just showed you on the seller side with all the same tools, all the same level as everyone else. There's no different kind of levels of, oh, you have more content than I do and therefore,
Mm-hmm.
it's all egalitarian across the board. You still have access to all 10,000 buyers, and everything's the same. So the producer plan, we're offering it to friends of Nancy for, so I'll send along this link to you, Nancy, for after the call if you want to send this out to participants, but it'll also be kind of in that slide here in the recording in terms of the URL for you guys. But essentially it's a great deal for getting on for a good chunk off our usual price, which is about $215 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is of interest for you guys and you think
definitely. Could you go ahead and can you review how many times? I think when I heard about this, but it might have been the support for independent producers, I think they said there was a limit of 5 films that you could be selling simultaneously, or is that still the case, or is it as many as an independent producer has?
Yeah, so the producer plan is for single title producers, and then up to about 5 is kind of our max for this kind of level.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in that range there, this plan is basically for you. So
that's perfect. And you're going to send me the link, and I'll go ahead and also make it available to the folks that are on the call and generally speaking.
Yeah.
And do you have a number of and the price is based on $125 a month is based upon a 6-month purchase, which basically means if it's less than sending one person the AFM.
Yeah. So again, we don't say that you should do this instead of markets or whatever you might want to do. Choose how you want to sell your film, but it's basically makes a lot of sense as part of just a marketing budget, right? Just to roll in terms of money anyway on getting my title in front of folks. So
Right.
A lot of the producers that have joined up with us has viewed it as part of their marketing, essentially.
Right. I'm not saying that people shouldn't go to AFN. I'm just saying if you only had $800, which would you have to think about how you're going to meet more people more quickly. I think it might be this.
But yeah, I'll definitely send you the link, and it'll also be in the recording here. I made sure to add the URL kind of on this page over here, so it'll be easy to access.
That'd be great.
Yeah, so since I know that a lot of the folks in this call are probably within the producer range, I want to make sure you guys knew about it. Somewhat new for you guys. And
that is really cool.
Yeah, and that is essentially a quick tour of rights trade and what we do. And and what we care about and how we're trying to make connections for buyers and sellers out there. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or chat about more things if you'd like.
That sounds great. Why don't you, you can stop sharing your screen and then we'll go ahead and, be on screen and we'll take some questions.
Great.
So we had a couple of questions that people asked right off the bat. I think the first one that we got was what you sold, you've been host to quite a large number of transactions. Can you talk about are you allowed to talk about some of the films that actually sold through you?
So yeah, as you can imagine, we can't always discuss the actual details of the final deal in terms of the numbers. But we can say things such as like Whiplash and Manchester by the Sea were listed on our platform before they even started their festival runs.
Wow.
So we do see, again, all levels of titles in terms of award winners and also smaller films. It really runs the gamut. But our deals have also run the gamut as well. So we don't release specific figures, but all levels.
Yes. Cool. And listing titles is important because that makes people feel comfortable if somebody is, and also the companies that you've listed, the indication that those people are on the platform and that you can reach actual buyers at those companies, individual people who are authorized to make a purchase, then that's a good indication that it's reputable, which as in this town.
Completely.
Reputable is a big thing, actually.
Yeah.
Do you have a let's see. So I saw when you were going through the thing, there was an option that said short film. So people make short films available through this platform as well, and there are buyers or people that license projects for short films as well as for longer films.
Yeah. So while the majority of our content is for film and television content, we do have a lot more that have come on in the recent years that are of the short film category, of the digital category, that are coming from the kind of the more new media, I guess, sources you might say. We do have short form content on the platform, both traditional short form and then kind of the more serialized content that you've seen come up in the recent years.
Like sort of web series style content.
And YouTube stars, content and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Great. And then you have the 125 thing is $125 a month for up to 5 submissions, right? So it's not $125 per month per submission. It's if you get under the producer plan.
Basically, it's for the company or individual. Yeah.
Right. So in other words, it's $125 a month, $175 if you're buying a month-to-month basis, and it's that's for up to 5 films, and then it's and you get the lower price if you get 6 months in advance. So, do you have information on? So if somebody's, do you provide information, or can you give insight into what resolution content people should be producing? Is 4K much more profitable to produce than 2K? You mentioned something about web form content, which I was kind of confused about. Do you want to talk a little bit about specifications for the content that make it easier to sell through the platform?
Yeah, so typically we give full specs when you're doing your upload process in terms of what we recommend and that kind of thing. We just kind of, as we were discussing before this, say like make sure that there is good sound, make sure that there is good, non-grainy visuals. If you want full specs breakdown, it's something I can also send along to you in terms of what we typically ask for. I would say that I have not seen a huge differentiator in terms of, oh, I shot it this way, I know I shot it this way, and therefore I'm able to demand so much more.
Well, especially since you're doing both film and television, that the parameters are can be significant. And SVOD, you're doing that really is the gamut from 2K to 4K to 8K. And I noticed that you had theater people, theater outlets.
Yeah, definitely. So we have folks that are just purchasing for theatrical distribution as well.
Right, which is very cool, and that's worldwide, so it's very, very hip. Cool. Jamie asks, and I think there's so much advice to give filmmakers, but do you have any specific advice that you think you when you're working with filmmakers that you sort of wish somebody would tell them before they launch their campaign, their projects?
It's a great question, right? There's usually when you're setting out to do that, there's so much kind of anxiety surrounding it, but I think my first one is don't forget why you got into it in the first place. Like you got into it because you had a creative idea and you cared about it and you wanted to make it happen. I think that that to drive you through the rest of it, because you're going to have headaches with the rest of it. Because as soon as the creative part is done, that's the full-on business. You got to make sure your content lives somewhere, right? To make sure you monetize. So I would say the biggest thing is do your homework. Look for comparables that are similar to your content. Look for other folks that have done what you've done, and copycat for what makes sense for you. Ignore what doesn't. Definitely. I would say just read as much as possible in terms of the trades and otherwise. And there's amazing resources out there. Not only stuff like, the trades and IndieWire and all those kind of things, but also content like you're producing, Nancy, just, to make it amazing in terms of what's available to be found out there in terms of information. So hunt down folks like Nancy that are producing an amazing amount of content about how to get your film out there in front of the right kind of people.
You're very kind. I think Dimitri asked a really good question. I think, and I know that, you're not in a position to actually advise people on what pricing works, but can you talk a little bit about how people can find out what's an average price? Because I think a lot of people would be shocked. Like, I think when you were typing in the example to, selling something, you typed in $10,000 and it's like, no, that would be a good deal though, right? Because a lot of these territories aren't buying, they're only buying for their own region, for their own little theater system or their own little SVOD platform. So how do people know how to price things? Is it a matter of trial and error, or is there some place where they should be looking?
So there used to be resources that were great. They're a little bit out of date now. I think they're almost 15 or 20 years out of date in terms of the right price. There used to be something that was very helpful in terms of actual breakdowns. There's very few like that now. But again, I would say, honestly, look to the ones that are more the independent blogs versus the trades in this case, in terms of who's keeping up with that and the finger on the pulse. Again, I can't give full details about what we see on our platform, but I will say that we see deals that range from 3-figure deals to 6-figure deals for a single right in a single territory. So it can really run the gamut. So again, it's really important to do your homework, find the comparables to you, ask around, find a mentor or two, and see if it sounds right. I definitely would not go at it alone if you can for those kind of.
Can producers find each other through the platform? In other words, is it possible for them to see one another on the platform and say, you know what, this guy's got content just like mine, maybe I could reach out to them and find out what their deal was?
So a sort of ish. So once you're a seller on the platform, we don't allow you to do everyone else's catalogs per se, but you can always look within kind of our directory and see who's there, kind of on the basic level. But once you're as a full seller, you can't go hunt around, and just because you
don't want to pirate other people's content, right? You don't want to make it so that you can see what other people are producing. But that's actually an interesting thing, because what it means is that you have one of the best things about the LinkedIn as a platform is it's where people go to do business, and it's nice to be able to say, no, this is the guy that actually does this job. This is the actual buyer. This is the actual sales agent. This is the guy who actually is looking at the screenings. This is the actual producer of this content, not just the guy that's on. And this is his actual contact information. So that's an interesting thing. It seems like a good contact platform. One thing that I've talked to you about in the past is that you don't make it's not a good platform for people to do pre-sales on currently. And the content should be finished and it should be available for upload before you use the platform to reach out to people.
There's amazing other folks out there that work more kind of on the early stage side. If you're still in development, if you're looking for kind of your first round of financing, that kind of stuff, we're definitely more for finished product for you. Once your content's done, where do you go next? That's
right. So what you're not in the business of is making it so you can get pre-sale agreements, but you are in the business of making it so when the content is finished, it can be done. You currently have rules for vetting buyers and making sure that they're legitimate and they actually do deals and sell what they say they sell and pay when they're supposed to. Do you have the same thing for producers? Can a producer get blackballed if they don't come through on their make good on the obligations, or if it turns out the content they've sold through the platform is illegitimate in some way?
So I've not seen that happen yet on our platform where a seller, kind of being that way. We've never seen that happen, but we do look through content before it goes up in terms of the actual file. So we'll make sure going up is, inflammatory in any way. But we don't creatively blackball folks. We do take content of all different kind of, again, shapes and sizes. And
right, but if there was a legal problem with the content, in other words, if you guys do actually provide some level of policing, so you want to make it a safe space. So it's not the case that I could go pirate the Dark Knight, post it on your platform, say and make it available for sale.
Our first team review, basically. So before anything goes up, it goes with our client support team, and they would see that before it goes anywhere, basically.
Right. You don't require people who post on the content to have E&O insurance, but the people that buy through you may well require that. Right. That's cool. If people have more questions that they need to get answered, is there a way that they can reach out to you directly? Or do you have a support, or do they just go to RightsTrade and use the support channel?
Oh, the best way to reach us really quickly is just info@rightstrade.com. That's the quickest way to reach us. You'll find that on rightstrade.com if you look for our contact. I think it's the first one that'll pop up. But yeah, so that's the quickest way to reach all of us. You can also find us on social if you want to do that route, but I think email's our best, quickest way.
Well, I definitely think it's my experience with contacting you via email has always been incredibly straightforward. So, which is not true for everyone, actually.
We read our emails. We like inbox zero if possible.
Well, I mean, because usually your stuff is money. I think that's has a lot to do with your relationship to email. It's like, well, it's actually leads, so I think we should pay attention to them. Cool. I guess one more question. This is not a good platform if you want to submit something to get something onto. So Amazon, if I want to sell something on Amazon has its create space and I can use their platform. But I saw that you had Amazon Studio actually listed there. So can you talk about, and iTunes, for example, sells movies. Can people use your platform to push to those platforms as well?
So again, we're non-exclusive. You can use us in addition to anything else. If you want to take your path with Amazon in that sense, you can Creative Studio. You can also bring the finished film to us and then look for the Amazon distribution that way as well. So right. That can be through a sales agent, kind of as the first step, or that can be trying to go directly to that company as well. So we have seen all levels in terms of throughout the platform, but you can definitely take all different kind of creative paths to get there.
So what you're saying is that, so I just want to make sure I'm clear. So if Amazon, Hulu, Netflix, all of those kinds of platforms, you can reach acquisitions or buyers on those platforms through you.
But I believe everyone that you listed, yeah. So.
Very cool. That's actually amazing. I just want to sign up. I don't even want to sell anything. I just want to sign up. I just want to be a part of the club.
We'll have you. That's great. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us. I'm going to go ahead and edit this up, and I'll send you over a copy to vet, and then I'll, if you say it's okay, I'll go ahead and I'll push it out to my folks and the people that weren't on the call live with us today. Rick is asking what are the deliverables due? My understanding is after you set up the account, nothing's going to happen with your stuff until you post content. So the deliverables are due when you create the account if you want to sell something.
Yeah, so if you do the producer plan, I'll show you real quick. Sorry.
Cool.
Let's go here real quick. Basically, if you press on the producer plan there, it'll take you quickly to client onboarding. Start going straight from there. So your deliverables can be due in that phase, or if you need to get something later, you can always email the client support once you're fully signed up, and then we'll get the files from you afterwards. But if you do producer plan, it's right there within the same kind of path.
And then the file formats that you want, do you want to just go to review the ones that you accept?
Try to keep not in ginormous, so nothing that's going to be 5 million terabytes basically in terms of that first initial upload. And again, we'll contact you if it's not exactly perfect and give you specs, but we do say sound wise, I think we say no surround, stereo is fine. And then just try to keep it a little bit smaller for, and then MP4 essentially, and 5 kbps stereo. Cool.
And then so if somebody was purchasing content that was going to be distributed through a theater, when the theater buyer actually purchased the content and you made the deal through the platform, usually you would send them the deliverable that they were going to actually show them.
Yeah, and they would tell you at that point what their specs are.
And that's something you could negotiate through the platform. So the deliverables, the stuff that you need in order to post the project is basically the MP4 files, which have to be enough, which should be computer compatible, because that's what you're going to display them on. But the deliverables that you actually ship off to people after they've made the purchase are going to be whatever it is they demand, and whatever you negotiate in the sales process.
Exactly.
Right. So when you deliver the final content that's actually going to be distributed, that's going to be not through the platform because it's going to be subject to their requirements in terms of deliverable.
Negotiations, yeah.
That makes total sense. All right. Well, it has been absolutely amazing talking to you, and I cannot wait. It's so much fun to watch you guys grow. You know.
Thank you so much. You've been such a great support, and I enjoyed talking with you. And thanks everyone else for being here too.
Great. I hope you have an excellent day. Talk to you later then.
Bye.
Bye bye.